hope I'm not stealing any of your... Marc Cantanese, an expert in ForeFlight. Marc, thank you very much.
So this, quite the crowd. Thanks for coming, everybody. I don't have to... My dream of speaking in front of thousands and thousands of people is satisfied with this today. So just by show of hands, how many people use an electronic flight flag today of some sort? How many use something other than ForeFlight? Okay, so there's a couple. And that's about norm with the industry. It's like 80%, 75-80% ForeFlight. So this is good. And what I'm going to do today is keep it kind of basic, go through some tips and tricks. There might be a couple new people not familiar with ForeFlight, but I could literally talk for 3 hours on ForeFlight. There's so much stuff in there to learn. So when you really get into the nuts and bolts of IFR, flight planning, and so forth, that's going to be saved for probably another day. So let's start off with some news that just came out last month, and Boeing's been in the news a lot lately. But Boeing bought, what's that? Some good, some bad. Let me just, how about this? Yep. How's that? Is that all right? I want to scare people. So Boeing has purchased ForeFlight. This is very recent, and it says you win. That remains to be seen, because when big companies or corporations purchase little guys, sometimes it's not so good. But ForeFlight has had a great engineering team. They're very responsive. Hopefully, Boeing leaves that part alone, and we'll see what happens. So, as you know, the Jepson charts also, Boeing has the Jepson chart, so that's kind of already integrated into ForeFlight as well. So what I wanted to talk about was the 3 levels first. When you purchase a ForeFlight subscription, there's 3 levels. The first one is $100 a year, then $200, then $300. So you say, well, that's kind of a lot for an app, right? But when you look at the time that saves you, the things you can do with it as far as filing flight plans, getting weather, traffic, distance information, etc., all the airport frequencies, it's invaluable. You don't have to buy charts, right? Basically, paper charts are gone, right? And everyone says, well, what if your iPad fails when you're in flight? Well, there's phones, right? You're allowed up to 3 devices per subscription. So keep a phone in your pocket. If your iPad for some reason fails, you got a backup, okay? So most people opt for the basic subscription. I'm not going to go through all the details, but the second one adds everything in the basic plus geo-reference charts. That's the big one for the second level. So what that means is the terminal area chart or a taxi diagram will be superimposed on your map and will actually show your little airplane on the chart itself. So it's geo-referenced by GPS. Okay, and then for the very advanced $300 a year, this is the Pro subscription, and there's detailed performance information. There's also digital ATIS when you get that. So folks that are going into the bigger airports, you can get the ATIS digitally on your iPad. So you don't have to go tune the frequency. It also gives you pre-departure clearances at the bigger airports. I think there's maybe 100 or so airports in the country, like Boston. So if you want a clearance from there, you actually get an emailed clearance to you. You don't have to call clearance delivery. Okay. There's also Airport 3D View, and I'm going to go through that one as well. This is a really nice addition that was put in the last update. It gives you kind of a satellite 3D view of the airport and in the area around the airport. Okay. I'll try to stand over here, see how this works. There's also a web app. So if you have a subscription to ForeFlight, you can use the web app and do your flight planning at home without the iPad, and it'll all integrate with your other devices. Okay, so that's actually a screenshot of the web app. Sorry. Okay, which iPad to use? I'm going to sit down for this one, I think, because I have to bring up a web page. Okay, so if you haven't purchased ForeFlight yet, you want to purchase an iPad, which one should you get? Well, a lot of it depends on how much room you have in the cockpit, how much room you have on your knee pad, etc. But there's minimums because ForeFlight is very processor intense. So it needs basically the later models or it won't work well. So, you know, it actually shows you here which size do you want. The only Mini that's supported right now is the Mini 4, which is the last one. Supposedly there's another one coming out, but it's already out. Okay. But it has a faster processor. I don't know what other options it has. And then connectivity. So this is kind of important. You want to get the Wi-Fi and cellular iPad. Okay, that doesn't mean you have to connect to the service like Verizon or AT&T. You don't have to connect, but you have to get the one that is capable of it because it also has a GPS inside. All right. If you get the Wi-Fi only, it will not have a GPS and it won't work. It won't geo-reference when you're in the air. Okay, and then storage-wise, I mean, if you download all the charts, all the maps, all the terrain, it can get up there, well over 100 gigs. So I would opt for the highest memory setting if you can. Okay. Let's go back to here. Okay, the last thing on this presentation, ForeFlight also released an app called Passenger. This is very recent as well. It's only in the latest ForeFlight release, and the app just came out. So go to your app store on Apple and download Passenger. It's free. And what this does is it allows your passengers, if you have kids or a nagging spouse that says, when are we going to be there? Just say, open up the app, and you'll get all the information you want. It tells you when you're going to get there. It actually reads your flight plan. You could actually allow your iPad to send that information to the passenger app to everybody else that's connected. So arrival time, speed, etc. Won't give restroom stops or anything, but All right. So what we're going to do now is actually connect up the iPad, and if you have your iPad with you, follow along. You don't have to look at me for sure. So why don't we do that, Wayne? Okay. Sorry for the slight delay. I think we figured it out. Okay, we're starting up again. All right, so I want to make mention that if you're using your iPad and your iPhone, they're going to look a little bit different. The tabs are a little different. The location of certain things are a little different. Just because of the size of the screen, they had to do it that way. So I'm using the iPad in portrait mode. So it'll even look a little bit different if you're in landscape mode. So okay, how's that?
We're all deaf, Mark.
Yeah, well, I'll get there. Okay, so the first thing to notice is that on the iPad there's 8 different tabs across the bottom. Let's see if I can get this working too. Okay, those are your main tabs. It'll take you to the section of ForeFlight that you want to go to. So we're going to start off with airports. So this will give you all the information about any airport you want, depending on your, which subscription you have and what you've downloaded. You should be able to find all the airports. So the tabs across the bottom, airport maps, plates, documents, imagery, flights, scratch pad, and more will give you all the different settings. So let's talk about how to get or browse to a certain airport. You see I have Logan Airport up there right now. But there's multiple ways of browsing. First, you'll notice up here on the top, there's favorites, recent, and browse. So if I go to my favorites, you'll see I have North Central and Worcester in there. Why Worcester, I don't know. That's where I learned to fly, I guess, but that's in there. You also have recents. So a list of your most recently visited airports. And then you have a browse tab, so you can actually browse by state. Is that working? Okay. So you can actually browse by state. You can go to Rhode Island and then select the specific airport in Rhode Island. Okay. Another way to do it is actually type in the city or airport name up here. So if you want to type in Pawtucket, it should find North Central. Okay. So that's another way of doing it. It's just the way your iPad is oriented. Okay, so just twist it. Yeah, that's portrait mode. All right. All right. You also have a button up here in the upper right-hand corner that's called Nearby Airports. All right, so you want to find the closest one or the closest one with a restaurant. This is the way to do it. There's the second tab over is Weather Only. So that's only going to show you the airports that are broadcasting weather. Okay. So let's look up a little bit about the information of the airports. Okay, you'll notice up the top there it has Logan, General Lawrence Airport. It's got the Latin Long, the city, the sunrise and sunset time. The current flight category. So if you're on Wi-Fi or cellular, you will get the current flight category, which is marginal VFR, which is blue. Green is VFR, and red is IFR, and pink is low IFR. Okay? The elevation, pattern altitude, fuel, and some of the major frequencies. You'll also notice that PDC right there for the clearance frequency. That indicates that that airport will give you a pre-departure clearance if you want to. I've also queried ForeFlight to put the pilot control lighting frequency up there, and they never did it, but I'll ping them again. That's one of the things you still have to go to the flight supplement to get. All right, they don't post that. There's also some buttons up the top here, so you'll notice the 3D view. All right, so if we're on the Wi-Fi, which we are, take a second, but it will give us a 3D view of Logan Airport. Okay, so if you scroll with two fingers, you can zoom in and out, and if you twist with one finger, you can kind of twist around to see the runway you want. There's also buttons up in the upper right corner if you want to see the view of a certain runway. It'll actually flip you right around to that runway view.
But that's only on the most expensive one, right?
That's on the highest $300 subscription. That's correct. Okay. It'll also, in the upper right-hand corner, show you how far and how high up you are with that particular view. So you can kind of get a 1,000-foot view if you want and see what it looks like. So they make you pay for that one, for sure. Taxiways will bring up the plate section and actually bring up the chart. Okay, and you could turn the FBO on or off. So it'll show you where the FBOs are on the field. But this is a great tool. If you do have the geo-reference subscription or higher, it will show your plane on this chart. Okay. There's a comment section up here. This is actually let's go to North Central for this one, and we'll go to the comments. See who made a comment about the airport. So under comments, it has, anybody can go in and put a comment in, some good, some bad. It's kind of it's kind of like a blog where people put in their comments and likes or dislikes. Okay, and then there's also a remarks section that's put in by the airport. So things like birds on a vicinity of the airport or deer, any specific information that you may not be able to get in other methods. And then lastly is the FBO section. We'll show you all the different FBOs, including flight schools, FBOs that sell fuel or that don't sell fuel, maintenance facilities. They're all here, and the phone numbers as well. Okay, so the current fuel prices, 100 low lead, was that $5.53?
How accurate are those? Pretty accurate.
Pretty accurate. Yeah, I think they're updated every month or so. All right. All right. So let's go to weather. We're on the weather, or the frequencies tab rather. So all the airport's frequencies are here. You've got approach frequency, clearance delivery, common traffic advisory, weather. So this will give you the AWOS, and it'll tell you what type of weather it is. Obviously, that's the AWOS. So you can see if some, our operations need government weather like AWOS or ASOS. All right, here's the weather itself. So the METAR will give you the current conditions, and more importantly, when was that broadcast, or when was that information? 8 minutes ago. So that's very current, okay? Which is, sometimes if your iPad's not updating, that might say, 48 hours or something. You don't want to use that, so make sure that's updating. So you can see it's marginal VFR. It's blue here. So we'll also give you the textual format and the actual undecoded format, so you can scroll down and see the different, see what it decodes to. It'll also show you the nearby weather. So what do the airports look like close by? All right. Go over to the TAF, and again, we'll look at the time. That was broadcast 1 hour and 57 minutes ago. So that's, for some reason, it missed an update. And that'll tell you where that was. So Providence, and that's 12 miles south of North Central. So pretty close. But you can see the weather here, again, decoded based on the time. You can see it's going to get VFR here by 10 o'clock. Then we have the MOS, which is Model Output Statistics. And a lot of people haven't used that yet, but it's almost like projecting a terminal forecast at the airport you're at, even though the FAA doesn't broadcast one from there. Okay, so you can see that SFZ has a model output statistics, but we don't broadcast a TAF for this area. So what I found is that they tend to be accurate within 24 hours, very accurate, probably more so than the TAF in a lot of cases. Beyond 24 hours, not so much. So take it with a grain of salt when it's further out. Forecast discussion goes into details about weather up to a week out. Okay, so it'll tell you, high pressure, low pressure systems moving in, when to expect precipitation, cloud heights, etc. Winds. I would definitely go through this if you're doing flight planning. And then, yes?
The winds in the MOS, is that true or magnetic?
That's a good question, Jim. I do not know that. I'm guessing it's true.
That's what I'm guessing.
Yeah.
I don't know either.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's true. And then winds aloft. So this will go out generally about 48 hours for the winds aloft, so you can kind of get an idea where the freezing levels are and what the winds are upstairs. Okay, so by 1 o'clock here, we're going to be fairly light, but the freezing level is going to be, looks like above 6,000 feet somewhere. So, if you're planning on going IFR, you're probably going in the clouds today. All right. Let's jump over to the runways. Oh, excuse me 1 second. All right, the runways tab will show you all the active not the active, but it'll show you all the runways at the airport, and it'll show you specific information about those runways. For instance, if I go over to Norwood and I go to runways, okay, you'll notice traffic pattern, runway 28, right traffic. All right, so Norwood is a towered field, but when the tower's closed, obviously, use right traffic for 28. But what's really nice about this section is the wind components. You can go and actually look at the runway and see what the wind components for down the runway and the crosswind are for that particular runway. So it looks like today they're using runway 17. So the winds are coming almost straight down 17. Procedures. This will include departure procedures, arrival procedures, approach procedures, and airport diagrams. So this is all the charts for that specific airport. So let's go back to North Central where we are all familiar. So the airport diagram is just like it sounds. It'll bring up the airport diagram with the FBOs if you want to turn that on. It also has a little edit button up there. So if you want to make some notes, you can go and scribble on that chart. Maybe specific information like watch out for a little divot on runway 33 or something like that. Use something to remind you. Okay, and then you can clear that out. Clear they call it annotations. You can clear them out.
Is that with the Pro or is that with the Advanced?
No, that's the regular. Will give you this.
I'm only getting this.
Yeah, that's not. It's probably not downloaded. You probably don't have the latest information. Yep. But arrival approach procedures. So this is this shows you the 5 different approaches available here at North Central. So if we go to, for instance, RNAV 23, it'll bring up the plate for that. If you're using the iPad in portrait or portrait mode, I should say, you can actually flip the chart 90 degrees. Okay, you could have it upside down if you read that way. But and you see that because of georeferencing, it's putting the blue dot right there on the airport. So if you're flying that approach, it'll show your airplane flying that approach. And again, with the annotations, you can put in, if you want to put in lines or whatever you want to put in here, or words or text boxes, you can do that. And those will stay with that chart until you clear them. So even when you shut that chart off and come back to it, those annotations will still be there. Okay. But the other thing I want to note is that if you show the charts over here, there's a map section. So if you have the georeferenced subscription level and you click map, it's going to bring you to your map and put the chart right on the map. Okay, so now this is obviously a VFR map, but if I switched over to IFR, low en route, okay, it'll put our arrival or approach chart right there up against the low en route. Okay, and again, you can zoom in. There's a button on the upper left-hand corner that allows you to hide the plate or view it full screen, or switch to a different approach. Okay, so let's go and hide it.
How did you get there again?
Yep, so under procedures, okay, there's a button that says map. Okay, it'll put it on the map. All right, so let's go over to the maps and see what we got. Okay, so let's talk about creating a flight plan. Let's just start off with a simple one. You can see that I actually went from Lock Haven to North Central the other day. So you can literally just come up here and type in your route. Okay, here's a little tip that a lot of people don't know. You could put other things in here like D, direct. So wherever you are, wherever you happen to be, just put a D, and then your next waypoint, it'll go direct from there. Okay, so let's go D, and we'll do Keene or something like that. And it just sets it right up. All right. There's a flight plan button right up here. Okay, and that'll bring up more detail. So you see direct. If you put D in there, it'll give you your lat and long of your current location, and then Keene. But what you also could do, if you tap on one of the waypoints, like I tap on Keene, I could insert things before or after that waypoint and edit my flight plan. So let's do that. Let's insert something before Keene, and we'll just do, let's say we're going to stop at Minuteman today. Insert, and there we go. It adjusts on our map. Okay, and there is another way to adjust on the map. This is really fancy. Let's go back to our VFR chart right now. And zoom in. I'll come back to that. But your route on the map is kind of like a rubber band. You can edit it with your finger. So you just grab, let's say we're going to stop at Worcester. We just grab and bring this over to about Worcester, and it'll bring up the closest waypoints nearby to where you released your finger. So you could select Worcester, you could select this waypoint Tanuk. So let's go to More, and then you could say Add to Route. And it added it after Keene for some reason. I didn't want to add it there. But we can go and edit it in the flight plan right here, so you can move things around. Okay. Notice also that it has the tail number of your default aircraft and type. Okay, so you could set this up. I'll show you how to do that in a moment. But set up a default aircraft, and that's what will come up all the time. And it has your profile in there, your performance profiles, fuel profiles, weight, etc. But here's a nice thing is we've got this altitude button right there. Okay, so whether you're flying VFR or IFR, you could select and it'll show the different altitudes for that type. But say you're going on a longer trip, this will help you select the altitude to pick based on your headwinds or tailwinds. Okay, and how much fuel you're going to use based on your profile, how long it's going to take to get there. So, doing a round robin like this, it's not much different. But, going on a longer trip of a couple hours, it might be significant. It might be 15 minutes, just changing the altitude a couple thousand feet. So that'll help you out. And that goes by the winds aloft that you've already pulled in. Okay. So here's another thing you could do. I'm going to clear this out, and we're going to put in a longer trip here. So let's do SFZ, and let's go to Baltimore. Someone mentioned Baltimore earlier. Okay. So you'll notice right here it's giving us a distance, estimated time en route based on my profile, fuel used, and current wind condition. So if I flew this trip right now, it would be a 15-knot headwind. And if I brought this up, it's giving my default altitude at 6,500, and there you can see there 15-knot headwind. But what you can do, one of the things you can do in here, up in this tab, you can actually put in a time of departure, and you can put in an altitude. So let's go North Central to Bewey, and we'll do it at, we'll go 8,500, and you could actually put in a time. Let's say I want to leave at 3 this afternoon. So you could put this in Zulu, or you could put this in 24-hour time. Okay, and now what it's going to do is it's going to adjust. It's going to adjust the information here based on the winds at that time for that trip, and your estimated time of arrival.
Mark, that's local time.
Yeah, I put 3 o'clock local. Yep, but you could also put Zulu time in there. Yep, just follow it by a Z. Take out the colon and follow it by a Z. It'll work. All right. It's also got a reverse button here, so if you're flying down there for the day and you want to come back, just hit reverse, and that'll flip it around, and then you got a 7-knot tailwind at that time. So the other buttons over here, you've got procedure, routes, and time. So the route button is nice if you're flying IFR, for instance. What it'll give you is recommended and ATC cleared routes for IFR. All right, these are not preferred routes according to the FAA. They're just what has been cleared and what is recommended. You'll probably get these. You usually do. So you can just literally put in, select one of these. We'll select the airway route down the bottom here. Select that, and it adjusts our entire route right here. Okay, and those of us that have flight stream or connectivity to their GPS in their plane to upload flight plans, there's literally there's a button that'll come up top here. If you have Bluetooth connected, you hit the button, it'll send this route right to your navigator, and off you go. Okay. Also, you don't know if you're going to get this route, right? So they will email you your expected clearance. You'll get an expected clearance, and you just open it in ForeFlight, and then you just send it off to your navigator. Okay. Last button here I'm going to go through is procedure. So you can also, if you got your route on the iPad there, you can also put your approach procedure that you're expecting to use, or if you're just going to fly a VFR approach, you can even put in the traffic pattern. So let's do that. Traffic pattern in SFZ, say they're going to use 2-3 today. Let's put that in. And you have a selection of cross midfield or cross midfield direct. So let's do a cross midfield teardrop, and this is what it looks like. This is kind of what they're expecting you to do coming up from Baltimore. So you can get an idea beforehand. Okay?
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yep.
That whole box, I got part of the bottom, but I don't know how to get that procedure, routes, and 3 p.m.
It's not showing up on the side?
This is all I'm getting.
Okay, you're in nav mode. So there's a
Do I gotta
nav
push the
log.
guy
So
to
see
get
nav log right here? So you go to edit mode instead of nav log. Is that coming up?
That's what you said. Where did you say go?
See right down the bottom it says nav log or edit?
Oh, nav log.
Go to edit.
Okay, edit?
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. Great, thank you.
There you go. Okay. This button here it looks like a suitcase. That's pack. So if you put in a whole trip, everything's all set up, you hit the pack button, it'll make sure you have all the charts and airway, low en route, everything is downloaded for that particular trip. So you don't have to go and have everything already downloaded. It'll go and get what you need for that trip. Okay? Any questions on that?
How do you delete it afterwards?
Well, there's a couple ways. There's a clear button right here.
Oh, the pack.
Yep. You'd have to go into your settings. I haven't found a good way to do that, to delete them.
It takes a lot of...
Yeah, it does. It does. There is a way to do it. I'm not really sure. I download all the Eastern U.S. charts all the time, so I never delete them or never have to pack.
Hey, Mark,
Anyway,
can
yes.
you go back over that, how you can select from your iPad to your navigator?
If you have the flight stream or if you have a navigator that has Bluetooth, yeah. So if you have the ability to send flight plans, to your navigator, this is how you do it. So there's either
You can do that with Wi-Fi also.
you can do it with Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, but there's a button that shows up here if you have a connection to one of the, a connected panel. There's also a little send to button down here, and you'll see. You'll notice passenger here. That's the passenger app that I talked about earlier, so you can send it to your passengers. But it'll show up right here with a connect to panel button. Okay. You could also print it out. You could send this to email.
Is there a way to save it, like preferred routes?
There is, yep, and it's right up here. Oh, those are already the preferred routes. There is a star right here. So once this route is set, you hit the star, and it'll ask you for a name. So just put a test and save, and then when you go to your routes, it should show up. It should, but it's going to make a liar out of me. There it is. Puts it at the bottom, right where it should be, right? Procedure. So let's say we want to change it to an approach. We're going to do an approach to 2-3 into North Central, and it'll ask you for the initial approach fix. So let's say it's going to be YB, and then it'll actually show you the route. Okay. All right. Oh, that was if you're doing a VFR arrival. So you go to procedure, and there's traffic pattern. So then you could determine which runway. Okay. It'll even show you the winds on there. So if you're doing a VFR arrival, it'll show, well, the winds are calm here right now, right? But this way, when you're coming in, you're further out and you're getting weather. You can decide what runway to use just from using this tool. Okay, let's talk about the map here. Some of the other things you can do. There is a ruler on the map. Okay, a lot of people don't know this. If you use 2 fingers and you touch the map, it opens up a ruler. So you can go between two points on there. It'll give you distance and time. So based on your, in this case, it's basing it on my the speed for the performance profile of my aircraft. Then just tap the screen anywhere again, it'll go away. If you single tap the screen and you're near a terminal area like Boston, you can see the white outline for the terminal area. If you click on the screen, well, you got to be in closer, I think. It'll bring up the what do you call it? The terminal chart. What do they call it? I'm drawing a blank. Terminal chart, yeah, for Boston. So it gives you a little more detail when you're close into the class Bravo. We'll go back to the old one. Okay, different types of maps up here. So you could select VFR, IFR, street map, aerial map, or aeronautical chart. Now, what I find this useful for is for if you have a waypoint or a photo op, you need to, you want to fly over a specific waypoint, right? So what you can do is you can go to the street map. You have to actually shut off the VFR map. So let's do that for a minute. Okay, and you say you want to take a picture of, something over your house. Let's go over my house, which is in Cumberland. Okay, and you could actually click, you hold down, and it'll have location. Okay, right up the top there. If you click more, you could save. Okay, so you can put in a name or description. You put in my house, and it has to be continuous. There can't be spaces. So how do you get to the this guy here? Well, okay. Save. It's done. It'll put it in there. As long as your map is showing waypoints, it'll put it in. And then you could actually go direct. So we can go direct to my... Whoops. Okay. So now you've got this in here. You've got a waypoint in here, and you want to go back to your VFR map. So you could be navigating using the VFR chart and get right to your waypoint. Okay.
You can type in an address in that box too.
Yep.
Yeah, the new thing. You
Yep.
just type an address in.
That's correct. All right. So a couple other things on the chart. Wherever you are, you can select. You can just click on something. So if you're at a specific airport like Minuteman, you just hold down over the airport. It'll bring up everything that's close to there. So you can see Minuteman shows up. You can click more. You can get airport details, so it'll bring you right to the details for that airport.
Mark,
Yes.
how do you come back off of that screen? Back to the maps, the sectional maps.
You up at the top left. There's a drop down the top left.
Top left?
Yep. See up there? There's different types of maps. You're welcome. Okay, so if I go back to the different options for the maps, okay, you'll notice that you can show a lot of different things on these maps. For instance, radar composite. So if you're bringing in ADS-B or XM weather, you could show that on here. Icing, hazard advisor, air mets, sigmets, TFRs. I suggest leaving that on if you're flying VFR. And for instance, you see one over here. It's not real easy to see because I have my waypoints on. Let me turn off all my user waypoints. Did I shut it off? Shut off fuel for a second. You'll notice the TFR. Who knows what that is?
Explosion.
It could be. That's Fenway Park. Yeah. So if you click there, it'll actually show you what that is and when it's active. So the next 3 games here for Fenway, and who the heck wants to see the Red Sox right now? I don't know, but but that's kind of nice. If you have your route in there, you can make sure you're not going to infringe on any TFRs. We also have settings up here. Or sorry, let's do one more thing here. Here's a nice thing to have is fuel. Okay. Yeah, that's Hanscom. But 10 miles away is the lowest fuel in the area, and that's Minuteman 459. What are we here? It should be accurate here. It's not going to read because our waypoint's right over 550. Yeah. Yeah. So that's a nice feature to have. If you have to ask, you can't afford it. That's what I say right now. There is also lightning and PIREPs. PIREPs are kind of nice. Let's see if there are any being broadcast. Yeah, there's some. Let's go way out here near Albany. So you'll notice there's a couple, whatever plane this was at 8,000 feet, they're reporting no icing and no turbulence. But if I click on it, we'll get a little information about that PIREP. That was over Albany at 8,000 feet by a Cessna Caravan, sky clear or VMC, turbulence negative, icing negative. Okay, so helpful hints. This button right here is our synthetic vision. Click there. So if you're bringing in synthetic vision information from ADS-B or from your navigator, it will show it here. So it's kind of a little backup. It'll show your altitude and airspeed tapes and your heading information. Now that looks like it's accurate. I guess I'm facing north. So it's not really detecting it well. Bless you. There's a settings button right next to there. Okay, so screen brightness, map theme, terrain. I fly with north up, but some people like to fly track up. That's fine too. You could switch that here. You could show roads. You could show extended center lines. So what that is if you look at the airport you're at, or you're going to. Let's go back to SFZ. And we'll zoom back out. You'll notice the center lines. See the runway? So it kind of extends them way out so you can get a pictorial of what the runways look like. Glide advisor. This is really nice. You put in your glide ratio for your aircraft, and it will put rings on the map depending on your altitude and depending on the winds. It calculates all that in. So, if for some reason maybe you lose an engine, whatever, you can see if there's any airports within your glide range. Okay, and it's very accurate. So if you're flying over mountainous areas, you'll see that the ring will be very jagged because a mountain, obviously, if your mountain's over here, the glide to that mountain is a lot shorter than it would be for a valley. The winds too. If the winds are at your tail, you will see that the glide ring will be extended in front of you, but very short in back of you.
Is this available on the 99?
Yes. Yep. You have track vector. Track vector will show you a line in front of your aircraft to kind of see where you're headed, where the vector of where your aircraft is headed. Breadcrumbs is the opposite. It's leaving a trail of breadcrumbs behind you. It'll show that on the map for a specified amount of time that you set up in the settings. So say 15 minutes, it'll leave breadcrumbs behind you so you can see what your route was.
That's related to the speed, is that?
The breadcrumbs?
No, the track vector is going back.
It's based on time. So you could set that in the settings. So say, 60 seconds time based on your speed. Yep. And then the opacity down here, which is if you have weather, and I don't know if there's any weather close by now, but it's all moved off. Oh, there's some out here. Okay, so out in the Midwest, you see there's a lot of rain and storms. But if I go back to the settings and change the opacity of that, you'll see it. If you have it all the way high, it actually covers up all the maps. You may not want it all the way high. Alternately, it could be very. If you have it down near the end, you don't even really see it. So I like it somewhere a little past the middle, so I can still see what's there, what's underneath. If you want to get back to your location, just hit this button in the upper right, and it should take you right back to your current location. Okay.
Where do you set up, where do you want to descend, let's say, at traffic pattern altitude, like 3 miles away? Is there such an option on this?
There is an option in there. It's in the settings.
What was the question?
So you want to set up a plan where you do a VFR descent, for instance, and get to a certain level by, say, 3 miles from the airport. There is a way to set that up. I have to go looking for it, but there is a way. I'll show you how to do that when I get to it. All right, couple more things here. So if you have a route in here, so let's say SFZ we'll go back to Keene. Okay, and maybe you're zooming in your map to look at something, but now you want to get the map back to the zoom level to see the entire trip. There's a button over here on the left side that shows a route. It'll actually put the entire route within the range of your map. Okay, this down here, if there's weather on the screen, it will actually show it moving. So let's go back out to the Midwest where the weather was. And just hit the play button here. And as long as you're on internet or Wi-Fi, getting weather, see the motion of the storms. Yep, and the time, right? So it actually shows you the time here. This is in Eastern time. If there is lightning, I have lightning turned on. It'll show the lightning in there as well. Okay.
The important thing is that the weather is not up to the date, minute-wise.
Yeah, I could mention that. Good point. So whether it be ADSB weather or XM weather, it's not to the minute. There's a delay in getting that weather information to the service, and then there's also a delay getting it to you. So the delay can be anywhere from a few minutes to 15, 20 minutes. Minimum 6 minutes, up to maybe 15 or 20 minutes. Some of your displays will actually show you how long it's been since that weather has been updated. It'll tell you. So if you're trying to use this to navigate, pinpoint through a storm or something, don't do it. It's more of a general information.
Mark, all the sectionals of the United States in there?
Yes. Yep.
Including Canada? No?
Including Canada and Mexico. You do. For not for Canada, but for Mexico, I think you do. Yeah.
I think Canada comes with local
Yep.
areas like Quebec.
Yep. All right, let's go continue on here. Just something about plates here. So in the plate button down the bottom, you can save specific plates that you might use often for IFR. So you can set up a binder. So I just keep one binder called My Plates. But if you want to have multiple binders and put new plates in there, you could. And then you could access them easily. So you can see, SFZ runway 5 is here and all the local ones. All right, you can even print them out. There's a print button, so if you're attached to a printer, print it out beforehand. All right, documents is interesting. So here you have your flight supplement, AFD. I put some other things in here like the Airplane Flying Handbook and Aviation Weather Services. So you can download documents and put them into this page and view them here. It even has the manual for ForeFlight right here. So if you select the catalog, it has different options you can download. So for ForeFlight, FAA, you can download what you want. Okay. Also is nice is folks that just got back from Sun and Fun, or if you're going to Oshkosh, download the NOTAM and open it up in ForeFlight. Okay, so basically the way you do it is you download it to you view it from the web, and then you open it in ForeFlight, and you can save it right to this document section. So now you go in Oshkosh, you got the whole NOTAM right with you. Imagery is different types of weather products. So a lot of these I don't use, but there's a couple that I do use often, and one of those is graphical air mets. All right, so these will take you out 12 hours, icing, winds, IFR conditions. So if we look at, turbulence for the next, or in 6 hours, you can see that up north of here we've got moderate 8,000 to the surface at valid at 11 local. Okay. But there is, convective outlooks. There's icing, prog charts. So if you want to look at 6-hour icing severity forecast at 5,000 feet, there you go. So you can find out if you've got SLD or how severe the icing is going to be at a certain location. So I don't think we're going to get any here. Okay. So for flights, so this is how to add a flight plan. And again, it could be a VFR. I'll move this away a little bit. VFR or IFR flight plan, it does not matter. All right. So let's look at a flight plan I put in, an IFR flight plan I put in March. So I had Nantucket to Bedford. And it was already put in, but it gives me my information about the flight, how long it's going to take, the distance, the fuel used. You could select the nav log. You could select a briefing for that flight. It'll give you an entire briefing, all the airports in between, winds, etc. And then any messages will come up. It'll actually notify you in ForeFlight as messages pop up, like say there's a TFR or an AirMet that pops up for your route of flight. You can view those messages. But you put in your departure, destination, alternate if needed, time of departure. Okay, so you can go in and select your time of departure, or you could say now. So instantly, I want to leave now. Just select now. Put in your aircraft. Okay, and again, you have some aircraft already saved within ForeFlight. Now, I use different call signs for my aircraft, so I do some of the Angel flights and PALS flights. So even though it's the same aircraft, I have different call signs, so you have to put that in there. And remember that your call sign needs to match what your transponder is sending starting, well, supposed to be now, but starting in 2020, you have to have it matching. Performance profile, so this is pre-set up by you that I'll show you in a little bit. And then your flight rules, so you can actually go in and put in your route, or you can select from predefined or already approved routes, I guess you could say. Cruise altitude, and you can even put in passengers, so you can do your weight and balance. Fuel policy. So your fuel policy is, how much fuel do I need to get to the minimum required, or how much do I need if I want to put in extra fuel. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you could actually type in the fuel there. Let's get back to where we were. And then down the bottom, you could pack it, you can file it. There's no file here because this has already been flown. But had I just typed in the new flight plan, you would hit File. It will take you to the ICAO or FAA flight plan, and you file. You could file right from ForeFlight. And I find that it takes 10 to 15 minutes to get into the system. So by the time you get out to the plane, they have your flight plan. If it's a VFR flight plan, and I'm bringing up this latest one, it's not going to have it here because it's already been flown. But down the bottom will be an open button. Okay, VFR flight plan, you don't have to go call flight service when you get in the air. Get up to the hold line, one of the last things you do, hit open flight plan. And then when you get to your destination, close flight plan. Just remember to do it.
You have
Okay.
to have cellular capability.
You have to have capability to do that. That's correct. So keep that in mind. Also, what I find with VFR flight plans, after 15 or 20 minutes from your scheduled arrival time, they will start looking for you. So I tend to pad the time. So you go into your flight, and whatever it calculates for your time of arrival, just extend it by 15 minutes. This way, you'll have plenty of time to get there.
Can you update it in flight? Or you-
With flight service, not through ForeFlight.
I think you can still amend it, no?
In flight, how you have no connection? Yeah,
Right, you need to-
yeah, you have to have a connection.
You can call flight service.
You can call flight service. That's correct. Yep. Okay.
What's the best way to find the preferred route? Because I find that when you look for the route, usually gives you a jet route and some other routes.
Oh no, it has low-level routes as well. So let's start one really quick here. I'm going to add a flight plan. Okay, so let's departure. It'll bring up your most recent airports. So North Central and Keene, whatever. All right, and then the time we'll just leave it 10:20. Put in the aircraft performance profile. So let's say a 65% power or custom IFR. And here's your routes, okay? So you select your route, and it should have some low-level, for piston aircraft in there.
It does no piston.
It does piston, so, or you want to do airways, you could do that as well. But you can see that what I tend to do is look for the ones that are the shortest time. So there's the 35 minutes, it's just wounds direct. And that was approved, that was flown over a month ago. It says jet 7,000 to 8,000 feet. You may or may not get it. Here's one, piston 5,000 to 6,000 feet, Putnam, Victor 151. So let's select that route. It'll actually show the route on the map here so you can see what it looks like.
You can just highlight it before you.
You could just highlight it so it'll show you what that route looks like. Okay? And then you can go and proceed to file down the bottom. All right? Scratch pad, mostly used by people getting IFR clearances. So there's different scratch pads here. There's a general scratch pad, so let's do a new one. A general template. We have the craft template for IFR, ATIS, PIREP, all the different types. So if you want to issue a PIREP, it'll give you the actual form for it here. Okay. Let's get back. Close that one. Let's just do a drawing one. So here's our scratch pad. You could choose the thickness of the line. You could choose the color, but basically it's just take your finger, or some people have those styluses for the iPads. Those work pretty well. You can just put it whatever you want to draw. Okay. All right. Let's. Any questions there? Okay. The last one is the More tab. So this has all your setup information for ForeFlight. Okay. First one is your checklist. All right. I put checklists in here for when I do flying for Skyline, but basically you can add whatever you want in here. You have normal, abnormal, or emergency checklists you can add. All right. So if you want to get to the emergency one, you can click the button up to the top right. But you can go in here and you can go right through the checklist. And if you tap on anything, it will check it off. So as you go through the checklist, you can check it off, or you could reset. Okay, and you could add to it if you want. You hit the edit button and add to it. Logbook. Anybody use ForeFlight for their logbook? Some people do. Okay, it works pretty well. It'll keep track of your currency. So if you're doing any night flying, or you need your minimum required takeoffs and landings, since that's in here, it'll keep track of it. And if you don't have that, it'll remind you, say, hey, you're out of currency. Okay, so that's an easy way to keep track. Weight and balance information. Again, if you put in an aircraft profile, it has predefined profiles for hundreds of aircraft. So I didn't put this in. This was already put in for the Bonanza 35. But you can put in your weights for your pilot, passenger, co-pilot, baggage, and fuel, and it'll give you the VG diagram. Here's where you actually put your aircraft in, and you can see I've got the 5 aircraft in here. But if I want to add an aircraft, I just hit the plus button. You could put the tail number in. You could put the aircraft type in, which is a minimum. And again, start typing the type, but give me a type. Let's put Cherokee. So there's, an Archer 2. So I'd select that. Missing tail number, it says. But you could put in anything you want regarding that aircraft, speed, performance, or there's performance profiles. Okay, that one does not have a predefined profile. So you could select aircraft that have predefined profiles. There's some. Okay, so Cherokee, here's an Archer. So there's 3 ForeFlight already predefined profiles for this one. We're going to put this one in. We're going to select that. And now when I go to performance profiles, it's got 3 set up. So depending on whether you want to fly at 55, 65, or 75% power, that's already set up. All right. So it's got climb 76 knots and descent at 122 at 2,500 RPM. So you can also adjust. So if it's off a little bit from what you're actually seeing, you could do a percentage adjustment here. So that's how you set up aircraft. Custom content, some of this has to do with creating custom maps and charts, but I don't get involved with that. But the one thing is the user waypoints. So any of the user waypoints you've put in over the years will stay in here. These are all, I fly for the kids at Norwood for the Above the Clouds, and we tend to fly over their school or their house, so I keep that in there, and there you go. If you've saved any track logs, to go back to review them later, they'll show up in here, so you can record and stop from the map page a track or a flight, and it'll save those tracks in here to go through later. Here's your passenger app, so if you want to send your route to anybody else that's running the passenger app nearby, just start sending the route. Sentry. Someone's got a Sentry in here. Oh no, maybe it's just telling you to buy it. It's a suggestive selling. But if you have any devices connecting, like the Appareo Stratus or the Free Flight or the Flight Stream, they should show up in here when you're connected via Bluetooth or Wi-Fi.
Which one are you finding the best one for the compatible ForeFlight? Sentry?
They all work pretty good. I have the Free Flight system behind my panel, which connects, as soon as you power up the aircraft, it connects through Wi-Fi. But the Stratus works great, if you want just something portable. There's others out there that they've come out with now that are less expensive. There's even the Raspberry Pi. Everyone heard of what Raspberry Pi? It's a little portable computer, embedded computer, so you could build your own for $100, $150, and just plug it in or wire it into your aircraft lighter plug. Downloading charts. So again, you could, depending on the size of the memory you have on your iPad, you can keep charts on there as long as you want, and they'll update automatically if you prefer. But you could determine what updates you want. So for instance, if I go to US, it says 57 of 59 I've selected. So you could select taxi diagrams, which type of chart you want, terminal area, low en route. I don't select, why did I select IFR high? I don't know. I never go up there, but I have it on. And then you could select the states you want, and it'll tell you how much size they're taking up. Okay, so if I go back to Canada or Mexico, you'll see I've got 3 of 15 selected. New Brunswick, Ontario, and Quebec, only the East Coast.
Is there a way to choose between the high charge and, say, planes for certain airports? So does it just download everything?
Yeah, I haven't found a way to do that. It's either all or none. Yeah. So you can determine what you want. Some people, again, don't like to save the charts. You just pack, if you're going to Oshkosh or going out west, just pack for that trip, or just go download the ones you want for that trip. All right. So what's going to happen is there's a selection in the settings that'll say automatically download charts when the app is running, and I have that turned on. So if you're on Wi-Fi and the app is running and there's charts available, what you'll see come up down here. It'll say like 125 with a red circle. That indicates there's 125 updates. When they come out every month or so. Go get them. Open up the app, and it should start.
Note is to keep in mind that this thing's pretty hefty on those charts.
Yes.
The reason our internet died was because everybody turned ForeFlight on. And everybody had automatic chart downloads. So
Oh, it killed.
that's
Yeah.
why everybody went, oh, I'm on. Oh, I'm off.
Okay.
So just keep
So-
that in mind when you're like sitting in a lounge or
Yep.
something.
So that's up to you. I mean, you don't have to have automatic turned on. You could actually come here and just hit the download button when you're ready. That's an option too. Okay. But all the charts are there. Your account will tell you what level you're at. So your subscription, you can put in your username, password, and tell you where you're signed in for ForeFlight. So again, you have 3 different devices you can use. Jepson charts, again, is an add-on subscription. Those of you that like the Jep charts, you purchase that subscription. I don't know how much that is. Anybody know? It's a lot.
$1,200 for the whole America.
$1,200? That's a lot of fuel. Yes.
Right, if you have a 430 or 530 subscription.
Oh, if you're already getting the Jep charts, they're free? Okay, I didn't know that. All right, so there you go. If you're already pulling them in for your plane, you can get them for free. If otherwise, you have to pay. I tend to like the government charts until they go away, but they're working pretty good for me. So last thing is the settings. So anybody that's downloaded ForeFlight or using ForeFlight, go through this once in a while because every version, they've added some things, they changed some things. So you want to make sure your settings are correct. But you've got the screen brightness, the theme, whether or not you want to use day, night, or automatically detect. So if you fly a lot of night, it changes the view of the maps. Let's see what else we want here. Airway decoding. So I have bends only. Otherwise, it's going to show you every single waypoint on the airway. But I want to decode just where it bends. So in the Navilog, it's just going to show where it bends. North up, I have turned on. That's my default map view. Auto center deactivate. So when you hit the map select your location button, you can deactivate it as well as activate it. Distance rings. So distance rings on the map will give you, let's go back to our location. You see the rings here around our location, so it'll tell you the distance of those rings. So that's a 50 nautical, that's 20 nautical, and as you zoom in, that changes the distance setting of the rings. Okay, so those are turned on in the settings. All right, track vector is turned on. Track vector length. So remember, this was based on time, 60 seconds. All right, I can't show that because you have to be moving, and I can't run that fast. Let's see what else is hazard advisor. That means it's not going to warn you of hazard unless you're going a certain speed, because obviously if you're going 1 knot, that probably means you're just walking with your iPad. It's not going to warn you of anything. Hazard altitudes as well. So when you're in within 1,000 feet of a hazard. Map touch action. So you can bring the chart to the front if you touch it. You could bring the chart to the front with the chart legends if you want, if you touch the map, or no action at all. Show annotations on map. You can have that turned on. So when you bring the chart to your map, it'll keep the annotations with the chart and show them on the map. Breadcrumbs, if you want to turn those on, it clears after, in this case, 15 minutes. High distant traffic. So if you're pulling in ADS-B traffic, you may not want to see traffic 100 miles away, okay? Because it's just going to cause the processor on the iPad to bog down. So you don't want to see distant traffic. Maybe you only want to see close by traffic. That's what that button's for. Automatic downloads, like I just talked about, that's turned on. Automatically check to make sure you have the right information for your trip, so auto pack. Track log. Your flight plan format. So everyone should be working towards ICAO flight plans. That's what the FAA wants you to do. Or you can just use same as last filed, but once you set it up once, you don't have to worry about it anymore. It brings in more information about your aircraft, the capabilities, emergency equipment, nav capabilities, that type of stuff. Alerts. Okay, so what type of alerts do you want? Whether it be altitude alerts, terrain alerts, traffic alerts, it'll show on the screen, and if you have speak on there, it'll tell you as well. So usually you can hear it, even with your headset on, you can hear it. But like if you're taxiing around an airport, there you go. Okay, so coming up to the hold line of a runway, it will show you on the map, it'll show on the screen approaching runway 33 or whatever it might be. Very useful, especially at a towered airport or busy airport where you don't want to inadvertently cross a runway. TFR alerts, and you could set the altitude buffer for that, TFR possible infringement. Okay, I think that's about it. That's a pretty good overview of ForeFlight. Again, for those that use it intensively for IFR purposes, there's another hour I could do to show all this stuff. But it's a great tool. It's got a good engineering team. I love ForeFlight, but I don't work for them, so I'm just here showing it. I'm not here on their benefit. So I just happen to like the tool. It works great. There are others out there. I don't know the differences. There's Garmin. There's Seattle Avionics got one. WingX. There's quite a few. But what I say is, if it's not broken, don't fix it. And yes.
But when it does break.
When it does?
When it does break, like it overheats, when the iPad fails,
Yep.
the battery's dead.
Yep.
I go to Newburgh, North Carolina.
Yep.
And what I've learned is I do snapshot, make a whole sectional for the whole way for my flight plan. You know what snapshot?
No. What do you mean a snapshot? I'm not sure. You mean take pictures of the maps all the whole
I'll
way?
take pictures
Yeah.
of the map, and I'll have different pages to Newburgh, North Carolina.
Oh, okay. You could do that too. Yep.
And I don't know if a lot of people know how to do snapshot so you can print it, because
Yep.
now when I do a flight, I print the shot because I don't have like a North Carolina VFI shot.
So when you press the home button and the I don't know what the other button is called, the top button, but what it does is it saves a photo. Okay. So if you go to your pictures and go to photos, okay, and go to camera roll.
And now you can print it.
Yeah, so I just took this picture of the screen. So you're saying you scroll the map and then take pictures.
I zoom them in.
Yeah.
So I have all the VOR frequencies. I have all the.
It's a good idea too. So up here in the upper right is and it's not going to show up on the map, but you can actually go in here and there's a print
And you can zoom it
print
in
button.
as far out as you want.
Yep.
But I print all my stuff in case the iPad battery.
Yep, that's a good idea.
And that's like the IFI shot. I print that, And the other thing is when you go to, let's say you go to airport.
Yep.
And you go to airports on your pad. And now type in 3BL. Now how do you type, when you put up your keyboard, how do you do 3BL? See, now what I do is go back to all letters. Go back to the keyboard. Okay, now when you hit E, put your finger on E. No, you're switching it. Just put your finger on E and push it up. It comes up 3, don't it? Go down. I'm sorry, go down.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it's got the.
So instead of switching it back and forth,
That's
numbers to print, the numbers to
an iPad trick for sure. Okay, that's a good one. One more thing I forgot on the maps. Down the bottom, you've got informational, an informational section down here. Okay, this is customizable. So you can see it gives you 8 different fields. I've even got cabin pressure in there, and it's kind of neat on an airline. You take it on the airline, it'll show you about 7,000 to 8,000 feet. There is a barometer inside the iPad. But if you select any of these fields, you could put whatever you want there. Estimated time en route, speed, heading, track, whatever you want to put there. So it's very customizable. When you're in portrait mode, I believe it won't give you 8 fields across. It only gives you less. Or if you're on your phone, the iPhone will give you less fields than this will in landscape mode. But it's customizable for whatever type of flying you're doing.
You know, Mark, there's one thing you didn't mention, and that's about getting a brief.
Yep.
Here, and that brief is recorded.
Yep. So briefings, yeah, if I go to mail, I think I've, well, this is going to show you a bunch of garbage, but.
And I think that's really getting to be more important because 1-800 weather brief, they're cutting down. They've got 9 briefing guys. They're going down to 2.
Yep.
So you're really going to be using ForeFlight to get most of your briefings.
So here's a briefing. You can go to the discussion section, or you can get a briefing for your route of flight, but it also gets emailed to you. So you can see this is a flight I did this past week, and it gives you the METARs, TAFs, NOTAMs for all the
So,
airports.
Can I ask this question?
Is that a valid briefing, Mark?
What is it?
That's a valid briefing?
This is a valid briefing, correct. Yes.
That's how you, I mean, because then if the FAA says you had a briefing, how do you show them you had a valid?
It does save. Yeah, the email gets sent to you, so they know it was sent to you. So.
Is it done by name or by tail number, Mark?
I believe it's by tail number because it has that information, whatever the flight plan was. So, yeah. So there's my identification is right there.
So do you have, on this part of it, do you have to sign up to have that start being emailed to you and everything?
No, your email is part of ForeFlight. It's already put in as part of your
Every time you
account.
hit that page and start doing it, it'll email you.
When you open up a new flight and file a flight plan, you get the email. So you'll get, not only will you get a briefing, you also get a flight plan. So this isn't going to show it well, but
It'll give you a graphical briefing too.
yeah, it gives a graphical briefing as well.
Hey, Mark, I found it only emails me the briefing if I file a flight plan.
Correct.
So if you're just getting a briefing for VFR
Yep.
flight, just file a VFR flight plan.
You could do that, but there's also a way to get a briefing. So you can go in here and get it yourself. If you go to flights, remember I said there was a briefing tab here at the top. It'll retrieve a briefing for that route. So let's see if this.
And when it retrieves, it does send you an email.
It does. So this, again, this is by the FAA standard. This they know you've had a briefing.
And it's recorded.
It's recorded.
So you get a legal
If you
briefing.
pack the flight, then it automatically sends you an email.
Yeah.
If you go to brief flights, you go where now?
You got to pack it.
So you got to create a flight, and then, yeah, once you create the flight,
Pack the flight, and it'll send you an
is a briefing. But even without the email, you can get the briefing. Just hit the briefing tab. So you can see there's different options here. You can scroll through and get, icing air mets, turbulence low, and it'll show you which one are valid during the time you're going to pass. So that this one is active near passing time. So you can select that one. So it gives you the graphical briefings. There's my METARs for the airports. So if I scroll down, you can print this. All right, this all gets printed. METARs. Okay, next is PIREPs. So you can go get the PIREPs. There you go. So both textual and graphical. Yep. Yep. So the legacy briefing up here. So you can select the type you want. Do you want just the METARs? You want the forecasts? NOTAMs. So select that section. I just want the TAFs for my trip. And there they are. So again,
cut
green.
Mark off now. It's
Yeah.
10:30, and I got
Coffee.
people leaving.
All right.
Let's give Mark a big round of applause.
Thank you.
Spectacular job.